So I'm in the Hollywood Hills today, and I have no idea who I'm about to read, but I'm really excited. I have some information coming through that I think will apply to the client today, and so I'm going into this reading even more confident because I know I have something to deliver. Nancy Grace! No way! Oh my God, it's so wonderful to meet you.
Likewise.
Oh my gosh.
I'm a little overwhelmed.
That's okay. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, this is wonderful. This has like made my life. Like, you don't know.
My name is Nancy Grace. He may have recognized me from Good Morning America or guesting on various shows or my long-running show, Nancy Grace. It's a crime analysis show.
Well, I would say something, but I have a feeling you already know what I'm going to say.
That's a good sign.
Okay.
Well, for me, if I were trying this case, I would never put a psychic in front of a jury. It's just not a matter of black and white. It cannot be proven. So for me to believe in almost anything, I look for proof. And that would be him knowing something that is not already out there, something that only I would know. I want to believe, but I'm on the fence.
My gosh, it's such an honor to meet you.
Likewise. Likewise.
You are such an inspiration to me. I'm kind of speechless.
Me too.
Nancy Grace is a huge inspiration to me because she advocates for those who can't advocate for themselves. And in a similar sense, I think throughout my readings, I kind of give a voice to those who don't have a physical voice. So I felt like we had that in common to some extent.
I'm very hopeful that you're real.
Absolutely, understandably. My goal is just to make sure that when I sit with a person, that I leave them better than I found them. I do believe that our loved ones have messages, they'll deliver them, and sometimes we can get insights into our personal life. So that's the gist.
I understand.
Awesome.
I am interested in Tyler's medium ability to speak to those who have passed on. And out of all of my criminal investigations, believe me, I think I know a lot of dead people, okay? And I brought some objects with me today to help him if he's for real.
Do you have any objects for me to hold on to today?
Well, I have two.
Okay.
But I'd like to start with this one.
Perfect, let's do it. So if you don't mind, I'll hold on to that. Sound good?
I usually don't let anybody else touch it.
Oh, yeah.
But
thank you. I appreciate that. So I'll scribble, and we'll see what comes through. And anybody can connect, but we'll see where we go. Scribble, scribble, that. Okay. Two men. Thank you. Now, I have a man that's insistent to come through, and he connects very much so as a fatherly kind of a figure when he's wanting to connect. Who had the congestive heart failure?
my father. That is one of my father's handkerchiefs, and I keep it with me all the time, at all times, right here by my heart.
I love that. There's a reference when I'm talking about Dad, and I'm referencing to the congestive heart failure thing. I don't know why this is coming across the way that it is, but there's an acknowledgement of having to go into hospital or getting a procedure one time, and the feeling is like we go in once, and for whatever reason, I'm having to separate this into two separate things. The way this is kind of being presented is basically, I want to stay where I'm at. I don't want to go anywhere. I want to stay at home. Like, I know what I have. This is my situation. I'm not going to deal with it. For this situation, obviously, the less I know, the better. But with this, do you know if Dad ever went to one medical facility and then had to switch or was suggested to switch into another? Or do you know where that could potentially fit for him?
Yes.
Though we did acknowledge Dad having the congestive heart failure aspect, there is a reference technically of two causes of passing. And I know that sounds weird. Like, we get diagnosed with one thing and then another contributing underlying factor is actually what actually kind of contributes to us ultimately making our transition.
He did pass away of congestive heart failure,
Right.
but the real intervening cause is that because of his heart problem in the hospital, he suddenly had kidney failure.
Interesting.
And that, they say, was the real cause of his death. To make his kidney work, they flushed his body with fluid.
Right.
And it made the congestive heart much worse.
Much, much worse.
And I've always felt
that it was my fault. It's because I single-handedly made him go because I didn't want to lose him.
I'm so sorry. There's not a single shred of anger, frustration, resentment, anything. Ultimately, he knew that he didn't have that choice, and he doesn't blame you for being in that position because he knew that it was his time. And I believe that when it's our time, as hard as it is for me to process or rationalize or come to terms with, he acknowledges that it just fundamentally was his time. And there's no sense of blame for you. He knows that there was this underlying cause that contributed in addition to this heart problem, but he's okay with it. So please know, he is completely understanding of the circumstances of his death. And he is not upset. I wouldn't even say he forgives you because he wasn't even upset in the first place. So know that. You didn't need forgiveness. You just have to forgive yourself.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for being so open about such an incredibly difficult part of your life.
It was awful. My father did not want to go to the hospital. He didn't even want to go. Never been discussed, and I've always blamed myself for insisting that he go to the doctor. But it was encouraging to me the possibility that my father believes it was time for him to pass on and that he is okay with that.
Okay. Thank you. The other energy that I'm wanting to connect with, and this is more of a feeling that's being connected to this other person, but the feeling is like tragedy, tragedy, tragedy. And I don't know what this is, but there's a feeling of a situation getting out of hand and not going how it was intended to originally go. This doesn't look like I was supposed to die that day. The feeling is I don't even necessarily get the strongest impression of someone like seeking someone out and like, oh, I'm going to take your life. There's a feeling of something goes wrong, and I don't know why this feeling of something goes wrong, like that wasn't the original plan. It really comes through as a feeling of, I know that this is for my, like, money, or this comes across more so as like a robbery that ends up being like a homicide.
I'm sure you're referring to my fiance who was murdered, we think, as a mugging. I'm not really sure why.
Right.
I've never known.
I'm so sorry.
He had gotten a job over the summer on a construction crew, actually. And a guy that had been fired from the job came back with a gun, and he unloaded the whole gun on Keith around his face, neck, and back. And that's what happened. It was not an argument. They didn't really know each other at all.
Right.
But he was at the wrong place at the wrong time, and I don't know what the guy intended. I'm sure it wasn't to go murder Keith because he didn't really know Keith.
That's the thing, yeah.
But he did murder Keith.
Right, exactly. Oh, he hated the way you found out. There's a reference to a phone call in one case for an individual in a public place, but he is having me acknowledge like a phone call.
Yes. That morning I had gone to take a statistics test, and I had taken a long time to take the test, and I had a job in the university library. And I stopped halfway to call the library and say, I just got out of my exam, I'm coming, I'm on the way. Right. And they told me to call his sister. And I knew immediately that Keith was dead. For no reason, I just knew.
Right.
And his sister told me. I remember it like it was yesterday.
You've done so much good since and made him so proud.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I hope so. I thought of him many, many times when I was trying cases and would be so tired and didn't feel like I could keep going. I would just see his blue eyes and feel like I was doing the right thing. It's not that I heard words, I just felt encouraged to keep going.
Absolutely. To fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves.
Yeah.
He's having me bring up finding handwriting after. And the feeling is like we're going through these things, but he actually wrote you a letter or wrote you a note.
Wow. That is incredible.
And he's wanting it to be known that after he passed away, he wanted you to be able to look at this, go back to this, be able to pull it out, and be able to read this because this has significance to him, but it's in a very loving context. Do you have any letters or notes saved of his?
Yes.
Oh.
I brought this with me today, and before I brought it in here, I took it out of its envelope.
Right.
So there would not be any writing on the outside. And I have a wooden box that I keep Keith's letters in. And before I came to you, I just picked one up without reading which one it was. So this is a letter from Keith, and it says, "Dearest Nancy, it is Monday night, and I only left this morning, and already it feels like a month. I'm writing to tell you we had such a wonderful weekend. I'm glad I stayed there through Sunday." So sweet. "Please remember, I will love you forever and always, sweetheart. Love, Keith." I hardly ever open them or look at them because it can make me so sad about what happened to him that I very rarely do it. But I did want to bring it to you.
Thank you for bringing that. It was interesting that it got referred to without even having to open it, so I think that's really special. That's important. Your fiance did try to come through, actually, interestingly, after he passed away, and he really tries to make strong appearances in dreams, so this is good to keep in mind. There was a whole period of time after he passed where we didn't feel him, and people even within family probably did not feel him come around super strongly, but he does acknowledge one instance in which he did connect, and he brings forward coming through very vividly while someone is asleep, and the feeling is like, I'm there, you see me, I'm here, but the feeling is we don't see many visitations after this. It's just like a single thing.
It's really interesting that you mentioned Keith coming to me in a dream, because immediately after his death, I felt his presence, but then many years passed, and he came to me in a dream and told me to finally move on, to go on, were his exact words.
Right.
And the next day, I called David, who I'd known for many years, and said, look, you either move to New York, we get married and have a family, or I'm going on. Well, amazingly, that Friday night, just a night or two later, I knock at the door, and it was my now husband. And when I opened the door, I looked down, and there were his bags. We got married immediately, and I had the twins. If it had not really been for him visiting me in that dream, I probably would never have gone forward. I would have continued grieving for Keith and never married, and known would have now been the happiest years of my life.
Right. Wow.
Because of that one dream.
That's incredible. And that shows the profound effect that though our loved ones might not be here physically, they can impact our lives and they can affect the trajectory of them.
He really did. It changed my whole world. I never thought I could be so happy again since his death. And he did come to me in a dream, and it changed my life. I feel very much more contemplative, and the strongest feeling I've had of peace in a very long time. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
For everything.
Yes. Oh, so sweet.
I just find many of the things he said were impossible for him to have gleaned on the internet or even a computer search of speeches I've given, of things that have happened. I find it very difficult to believe. I've spent my life, my adult life, judging, evaluating, and analyzing people, their mannerisms, how they speak. Are they lying? Are they obfuscating the truth? Are they hiding something? And I find many of the things he said to be absolutely amazing.
I just read Nancy Grace. I cannot believe I just read Nancy Grace. That is so crazy. That reading, for me, I think, really exemplified the fact that even when those we love aren't here physically, they can change the direction of our lives and the path in which we go. We might be surprised to see how many life events do happen to us that are for the better, that might be initiated by those looking out for us, even if we can't see them physically.